A single mom's touching act of kindness transforms a billionaire. 200 black cars arrive overnight. Marie wiped her hands on her apron, the fabric damp from washing countless dishes. The café buzzed around her, full of laughter and the clinking of coffee cups. She took a deep breath, grounding herself before the next rush. How many tips would it take to feed Emily this week? The thought hung heavily over her, magnifying every worry like a magnifying glass held too closely to the sun. Just then, she spotted him. The man in the corner, dressed so impeccably it looked like he stepped out of a magazine. Andrew, she had overheard someone call him. Yet, loneliness emanated from his very being, stark against the plush velvet of his chair, fingers dancing nervously over his phone. A twisted pang of compassion stirred within her. She couldn't fathom what drove the wealthy to such desolation, but something compelled her. Marie grabbed a napkin and scribbled a note. Kindness exists, even in the darkest places. Stay hopeful. Tossing it gently toward him was as natural as breathing. Yet the moment it left her fingers, unease clawed at her heart. Who was she to assume he needed this? What was she, a single mom barely makes ends meet, doing writing to a billionaire? Doubts spiraled as she shuffled back to her role. Would he understand her message? Did she even believe in her own words? Days turned into weeks filled with harrowing double shifts at the diner and long nights cleaning empty homes. Alone in her cramped apartment, as Emily giggled at her favorite cartoon, Marie often replayed the moments she caught glimpses of Andrew. He had started showing up at the cafe more often, and slowly, his demeanor had transformed. Smiles appeared, a ripple of warmth spreading across his face. But with each act of kindness Andrew performed towards others, a small part of her felt an irony gnaw at her determination. Here she was, trying to sustain her own spirit while his wealth enabled him to change his life more easily. Was she merely a plaything in a grander story? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she began to settle into the rhythm of this unexpected connection, news of a corporate scandal surfaced, yanking Andrew back into a past riddled with lies, deceit, and a group of small business owners who suffered in silence. Guilt crashed over Marie like that sudden thunderstorm, leaving her drenched in skepticism. She wanted to believe that her actions had spurred his transformation, but how could she trust a man stained by past choices? At a community meeting regarding the consequences of Andrew's actions, tension filled the room like smoke. Marie found herself fighting back a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, and an awareness of her vulnerability swirled dizzyingly within her. She could hardly stand when she confronted him, demanding accountability for the lives he'd impacted. Sweat dripped along her brow as she felt the eyes of neighbors scrape against her exposed skin. This was the moment, the one she had never anticipated. And then, the next morning, the black cars rolled into the town, each carrying an unknown promise. A shiver of dread resided within Maria's gut, as hope began to dawn just as rapidly. The community buzzed with speculation, anticipation trembling in the air like the electric charge before a storm. Were they harbingers of forgiveness or chains tied to unforgiving sins? Uncertainty coiled tightly around her chest. As Marie stood on the edge of the unfolding chaos, her breath shallow, carefully crafted dreams teetered on the precipice of this moment, leaving her questioning if her flicker of kindness could truly inspire real change in Andrew, or if it would instead unravel everything she held dear. Marie stood alone in her small living room, the soft glow of the lamp illuminating the scattered toys that trailed from the couch to the coffee table. The laughter of Emily echoed faintly from her bedroom, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their walls. As the black cars rolled into town, she felt an urgency rising within her. This was more than just a spectacle. It was a pivotal moment that would alter their lives in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. The day unfolded slowly, but Maria's mind raced with thoughts of responsibility. With every swirl of gossip around town about Andrew's intentions, her heart weighed another ton. He could be using those cars to placate a broken past or to mask deeper, more hushed truths. Why did he choose to return in such grand theatrics? Did he truly intend to make amends, or was he simply trying to regain a facade of respectability? When she finally managed to summon the courage to step outside, the warmth of the sun contrasted sharply with the cold knot in her stomach. She felt vulnerability gripped tightly in the rays of judgment cast by her neighbors. Huddled clusters debated, eyes flitting nervously towards the parade of glossy vehicles. Marie knew she should find some space within her heart for empathy, but bitterness held her captive as she stepped closer to the fray. She caught sight of Andrew disembarking from one of the cars, a determined set to his jaw. He seemed resigned yet resolved, an intriguing juxtaposition that made her hesitate. For a fleeting moment, she saw the boy behind the billionaire. The boy who had likely experienced disappointment and shame. The question nagged at her. What if this was his genuine attempt to reconcile his past? The notion both soothed and enraged her. Could someone with such wealth genuinely understand the consequences of his actions? Maria's chest tightened when she noticed a group of small business owners milling nearby, their faces a mixture of anger and hope. She recognized the familiar figure of Mrs. Chong, the owner of the local bakery. Marie knew the struggles of every entrepreneur in that circle, the heavy burdens they faced and the dreams teetering on the edge of ruin. Suddenly, she felt their pain vibrate through her very core. What if Andrew's intentions were misplaced? What if this grand gesture ultimately left them empty? Caught in an internal battle, she was torn between being a protective mother for Emily and a vigilant supporter of community morale. With the laughter of her daughter still ringing in her ears, she contemplated joining the throng, confronting Andrew, but she hesitated. What point could she make? Would she merely add to the chaos? With every passing moment, the stakes rose. Parents, children, and friends began to gather, the atmosphere thickening with charged energy. Then Andrew stepped forward. The crowd silenced, curiosity replacing hostility. It was now or never. Marie felt an instinctive pull toward the front as he began to speak. Marie's heart raced. She couldn't quite place why she felt so compelled: anger, hope, a mixture of both. It was as if the air held its breath, waiting for him to unveil his intentions. She had to know. Almost involuntarily, she realized she was stepping forward, nerves crackling along her skin. The flicker of vulnerability in her gut morphed into a blaze of determination. The time had come to face him, to demand answers not only for herself but for her community. As the words collided on her lips, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. What would she say? Would this act solidify her resolve, or would it unearth something deeper between them? All around, the tension in the air crackled as Andrew's eyes met hers, a spark igniting in a conversation yet to unfold. Marie stepped through the crowd, her pulse quickening with every stride she took toward Andrew. The voices around her faded into a low murmur, and she felt an odd disconnection from the people she shared her life with. In that moment, it was just her and the man whose reappearance had unsettled her world. Andrew stood tall, poised, and yet he radiated uncertainty that mirrored her OW as his speech rolled on an attempt to paint a picture of reconciliation. Marie struggled to focus on his words. It was a carefully crafted narrative designed to win back the town's favor. Yet all she could think of were the faces of those he had wronged. A small tightening at the edges of his smile felt like an invitation, but was it genuine or just a performance? Where did his sincerity end and his ambition begin? She was close enough now to see the flecks of uncertainty in his eyes. In that moment, Marie recognized that his return wasn't merely a self-serving gesture. It was a beacon of vulnerability veiled in hopes of atonement. In her heart, a conflicting emotion began to simmer. It was compassion intertwined with a deeply rooted indignation. Could she forgive? The question reverberated inside her mind, demanding an answer. Could she stand before him and express the web of hurt and chaos he had woven into the lives of those she cherished, while also allowing for the possibility that he could change? The thought lit a fire in her veins. The stakes of this moment were not just her own. They resonated with every disenfranchised spirit in the crowd and every mother like her, trying to carve a future out of hardship. Caught in this boiling mix, Marie knew she had to voice her doubts, yet she struggled to form the right words. Andrew, she finally managed, her voice quivering in the charged silence. The crowd instinctively shifted closer, drawn in by the tension of the confrontation. What makes you think that throwing money at this town will erase the past? That you can make it right after all that you've done? The question hung in the air for a heartbeat, an accusation wrapped in vulnerability that cracked Andrew's composed facade. She could see his jaw tighten, his lips parting as if he wanted to explain, but she pressed forward. Do you understand the lives you've disrupted? Businesses that can't afford to gamble their hopes on your whims? Each word expressed not only her anger but the weight that had long rested on her shoulders as a protector, a nurturer, a fighter for change. Andrew took a breath, his expression shifting from one of defense to contemplation. I know I can't just fix everything, he began, a stark contrast to the bravado he initially presented. But I'm here to listen. I want to learn. Marie interrupted, the fire within her rising. You've had everything handed to you. What could you possibly learn from our struggle? In that moment, Marie caught a glimpse of her own reflection in Andrew's eyes, the raw truth of her frustrations, coupled with the emotional labor she had endured for too long. She felt something shift in her, a newfound clarity. Maybe, he said quietly, the real challenge isn't about what I can offer, but how I can truly understand you, everyone here, what your lives mean beyond my wealth. His words stirred something deep inside her, as if the flicker of vulnerability that once seemed like a burden was now illuminating a path towards understanding. Marie felt a resolve sprouting within her. Could she not only challenge Andrew's intentions but also allow for the possibility of growth, both for him and herself? As she stood poised, ready to respond, the tension in the air shifted yet again, an uncharted territory unfurling before them. Would they be adversaries or partners in this journey? The crowd watched, breathless with anticipation, as Marie steeled herself for the next words that could redefine her own narrative. What was she willing to risk for the sake of change? Marie felt the weight of the crowd pressing down on her, each gaze a reminder of the stakes resting on her shoulders. In front of her stood Andrew, with an earnestness she had rarely seen. His offer to learn hammered against the walls of her defenses, but doubt clawed at her. What if your understanding only comes wrapped in privilege? What if you don't see us for who we really are? She challenged. With each word, the rise of her voice mirrored her burgeoning strength. The conviction in her heart burned brighter. She was not just advocating for herself, but for all those who felt unheard. Andrew's brow furrowed, a flicker of realization dawning in his eyes. I can't change the past, Marie, but I want my actions to reflect a deeper understanding. Marie hesitated, the conflict within her roaring like a wildfire. Was she prepared to entertain the concept of redemption? Could she stand beside someone who had caused so much chaos? This was the crux of her metamorphosis, but it demanded a reevaluation of her values. What does that even look like? She pressed further, each question an attempt to peel back layers of ambiguity. Can you truly empathize with pain you've never experienced? Andrew's expression shifted, a hint of vulnerability emerging beneath his composed exterior. I don't know what it feels like to lose everything, but I can recognize that pain exists. If that's a start, I'm willing to explore more. A rush of emotions cascaded through her. This was not the arrogant billionaire from before. It was a man attempting to bridge an insurmountable gap. But the question loomed, could forgiveness come so easily after the wounds had run so deep? Marie inhaled sharply, anchoring herself in the tumult of her thoughts. If she were to allow this space for growth, both his and hers, she needed to redefine her own boundaries. Forgiveness shouldn't mean relinquishing her power. It could be a way to reclaim it, to craft an unexpected alliance rooted not in history but in potential. Andrew, it's not about me standing in judgment, she conferred, her tone steadying. It's about grasping the reality that each life here struggles beneath burdens you have yet to even acknowledge. Then help me see it, he urged, and the directness of his gaze ignited a flicker of hope. What was she afraid of? Had she been hiding behind her anger to shield herself from vulnerability? The introspection felt like a heavy cycle echoing back to her solitude as a single mother. Perhaps it was time to weave trust back into her narrative, to access that seemingly untapped reservoir of strength she had always nurtured in silence. Holding onto the microphone, she set her jaw, making a choice that felt monumental. "You want to learn? It's all I desire," Andrew replied, the sincerity in his voice wrapping around her like a comforting cloak. "Then start by volunteering, by facing the community you've hurt. Show up when it's uncomfortable and speak to those whose lives you've disrupted." As the words flowed from her, the crowd's energy shifted. Marie saw glimmers of agreement, hope palpably rising. This was her way of reclaiming agency, of forming an alliance contingent on action, not just words. "I'll dig in, Marie. I'll do more than write checks," he vowed. The space between them crackled with a new possibility, laden with both challenge and promise. Maria's heart raced as she considered the unfolding implications, an intricate dance between trust and skepticism, an exploration of what could change if they met halfway. Could she risk embracing the complexity of someone determined to change, even amid her own messy journey? "Let us see if you mean it." "Then," she replied, her pulse quickening with anticipation as she took a step back, shifting towards the crowd. What had begun as a confrontation teetered into an unfamiliar alliance, compelling her to grapple with the limits of her own convictions. As Marie surveyed the crowd, she could sense a shift not just in Andrew, but in herself, her determination blossoming from resistance to empowerment. "Tomorrow let us talk specifics," she added, the promise of tomorrow swirling with uncertainty. The weight of possibility hung heavy on the air. Would she and Andrew rise to the challenge, or would fear pull them back into their old narratives? Marie took a breath, knowing that reality would unfold with every step they dared to take together. And as she walked away, a colorful kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within her, she couldn't help but wonder, what kind of change could emerge when two seemingly opposite worlds collided? The next day dawned with a heavy sky, mirroring the tumult inside Maria's mind. She had barely slept, caught in a loop of questions about her own motivations and the paths unfolding before her. The promise of tomorrow felt simultaneously exhilarating and daunting. There was so much at stake. Her heart and her community were intertwined, and she needed clarity. Marie arrived at the coffee shop where she promised to meet Andrew, a familiar haunt where she often found solace amidst chaos. The aroma of brewing coffee mingled with the chatter of early patrons, yet her stomach nodded with anticipation. How could she possibly guide him through the complexities of lives shaped by struggle? As Andrew walked in, his presence loomed larger than life, an echo of the privilege he wielded. He scanned the room, spotting her and making his way through the tables with a determined gait. Today felt different. Today they were stepping into unknown territory. "Marie, I've been thinking about what you said," he began, his voice steady but tinged with an urgency that piqued her interest. "I want to dive into this not just for knowledge, but because I feel a responsibility to act. But I also realize how overwhelming it can seem." She leaned forward, studying his expression. There was a spark of sincerity, yet the unease lingered. "Responsibility is a heavy word, Andrew. It implies that you understand the depth of the implications. Do you?" He hesitated, clearly wrestling with his own privilege. "I know I'm starting from a place of ignorance, and I won't claim to grasp everything immediately. But I'm committed to the process. How do I begin?" Marie felt a momentary surge of admiration for his willingness to confront the realities before him. Perhaps there was a path forward, but it would require unimaginable courage from both of them. "Move beyond the luxury of feeling sorry," she advised, her tone assertive. "You need to engage with people not as a savior, but as a fellow human being. Volunteer not just to learn, but to listen. The stories of this community are rich, layered with histories you have yet to touch." His eyes widened with understanding. "And that means what? A community center? Working in a soup kitchen?" "Yes, but more than that," she replied, excited by the potential unfolding in her mind. It means taking the time to forge real connections. There are community meetings, families that need help with their children's education, local events where you can sit down and hear people's stories. Andrew nodded slowly, the gravity of her words settling in. I can see that. It's daunting to face my past mistakes in that way. What if they don't want to talk to me? Then you learn patience, Marie retorted gently. This is about more than just you. If they don't want to engage, respect that. It's an important part of understanding their realities. Your desire to help is an opportunity to build a bridge, just don't assume it's going to be easy. Andrew's uncertainty was palpable, but there was also determination behind his hesitation. So I just show up? No grand gestures? No grand gestures. Just raw, unfiltered presence, she affirmed. Listen to their stories. Share your own. Find common ground. It's about humanity, not philanthropy. She leaned back, sensing a shift in their dynamic. The air felt charged with potential, as though they were both balancing on the precipice of something significant. Could he sustain this level of introspection? Could she? For the first time, it feels right, Andrew finally said, a hint of excitement in his voice. But it's all or nothing, right? I'll go in with both feet. For better or worse, she replied, a half smile emerging as uncertainty still gripped her. With their hands gripping coffee mugs, both struggled with their next steps. It was the first time Marie felt a glimpse of collaboration, of a partnership that held the potential for growth beyond the confines of their own fears. Yet, in the midst of hope, a nagging doubt whispered in the back of her mind. What if Andrew's intentions were ultimately self-serving? As their conversation continued, probing new depths and grounding intentions, Marie braced herself for tomorrow, a shadowed uncertainty poised to challenge all she thought she understood. Would they manifest the change they aspired to? Or would the delicate threads of trust fray under the weight of their pasts? Marie stared into her coffee, its steam curling like whispers of doubt. Andrew's resolve had kindled something within her, an urgency to assist others and herself. Yet, the question of authenticity loomed large. The interaction had nudged her toward a new understanding of her own interactions with others. She wasn't just giving advice, but also confronting her deepest insecurities. Her experience with community issues wasn't just professional. It had become personal, laced with raw emotion that echoed in her mind. What did it mean to truly connect? To drop the walls built around oneself and engage in a genuine exchange, especially when the edges of her own vulnerabilities remained frayed. Determined to sift through these complexities, she made a decision that frightened her as much as it excited her. Instead of waiting for Andrew to venture into the community alone, she would accompany him, not as a guide, but as a partner navigating the unknown together. This collaboration could hold both of them accountable and might cultivate an environment ripe for true listening and growth. After a lengthy deliberation, Marie called Andrew. Let us meet again. This time, let us start those conversations together. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and she could practically feel the gears turning in his mind. Are you sure? I thought you wanted me to step up independently. I do, she countered, excitement blooming. But what if we explore this together first? I could use the opportunity to confront my own hesitations as well. His agreement was immediate, laced with an enthusiasm that lessened her trepidation. Absolutely. When and where? The chatter of the coffee shop faded into the background as she plotted their next steps. Her mind raced forward, imagining potential encounters, the souls they might meet, and the layered stories they could uncover. This wasn't just about pushing Andrew. It was about understanding herself and placing her own motivations under a magnifying glass. Marie found herself crafting a strategy, a map that would take them through various neighborhoods, each with its own narrative. Creating a connection wouldn't simply happen by approaching random houses or popping into local eateries. It required context, history, and, most importantly, an understanding built from shared experiences. She began to jot down observations and potential places where they could initiate meaningful conversations: community gardens, youth centers, even local markets. Days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. The exhilaration of planning felt refreshing, but a nagging feeling threatened to break through her optimism. Would her efforts truly lead to understanding? Or would they be met with skepticism, revealing only the complications of social divides. Her inner critique taunted her. How could she expect to connect authentically if she herself was wrestling with so much uncertainty? As they met to finalize their plans, the air between them shifted. Andrew seemed lighter, yet she observed the tension in his posture, a testament to the vulnerability of honoring the stories waiting to be shared. Could he also accept the possibility that some interactions might not unfold as he hoped? "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice firm yet tinged with concern. "We might hear things that challenge us." "Yes, but that's a part of it, right? Facing challenges?" He chuckled, but beneath the humor, she sensed an undercurrent of dread. "Indeed, it's not just about you learning. It's about both of us understanding our shared human experience." With their plans set, Marie returned home, her heart pounding with anticipation. She felt the momentum building. She wasn't just stepping into the role of mentor or partner, but was also confronting her own structural beliefs about community, privilege, and fear. That night, as she scribbled her thoughts in a journal, a realization washed over her like a tide. The true measure of their endeavor would lie in their ability to be vulnerable, to not shy away from the uncomfortable truths they might face. As she closed her notebook, she couldn't shake the feeling that something profound awaited them. Tomorrow marked the beginning of conversations, connections, and perhaps the unveiling of truths both beautiful and painful. With her heart quickening, she typed a message to Andrew. "The time has come to face the stories. Are we ready?" The moonlight cast a serene glow, yet inside her churned a cyclone of questions. What awaited them beyond the threshold of their intentions? Would they emerge changed, or would they find themselves lost amidst the very lives they sought to understand? The sun peeked through Maria's kitchen window, illuminating the notes strewn across her table. Each scribbled phrase seemed to pulse with possibilities, her heartbeat steadying as she refocused on the day ahead. Today was more than a casual exploration. It was a commitment to unravel the complexities that bound her to Andrew and the community they set out to understand. As she paced, her mind looped back to the question she had posed to Andrew just a night before. "Are we ready? What did readiness even look like?" She grabbed her journal, flipping through pages inked with aspirations and fears. It dawned on her that their imminent meeting wasn't merely a chance to communicate with others. It was a pivotal moment for herself, a plunge into authentic engagement. Her resolve solidified with the thought of collective courage. They would embark as one, yet she understood that her tumultuous inner landscape needed addressing first. Fear remained a potent adversary, lingering with its insidious whispers. Had her instincts led her astray? Was she pushing herself too far? Arriving at their first stop, a local community center bustling with life, Maria's stomach fluttered with equal parts anticipation and anxiety. Mystery surrounded them. People of varied backgrounds busied themselves with bundles of supplies. Laughter escaped here and there, while the smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air. "Are you ready?" Andrew's voice cut through her thoughts, his presence grounding her. She met his gaze, and the reassurance she found there prompted a nod. But she could feel the silent question lurking between them. What if they weren't ready? They were met by Carla, the center's director, who welcomed them with vivid enthusiasm. However, beneath her lively exterior, Marie sensed an unease in the room, a hesitance that mirrored her own. As Carla spoke, she shared the challenges faced by the community, the needs that seemed both overwhelming and insurmountable. Each word tugged at Maria's heart, stimulating the tension in her chest. Andrew leaned in, absorbing the information as if it were the first thread in a larger tapestry. For him, this was fresh terrain, eagerly mapping out the individuals and stories. Yet Marie felt more like a spectator in a theater. She watched as passion ignited within Andrew, yet shadows of inadequacy loomed over her. This disparity churned restlessly. Where was her own passionate connection? Next to her, Andrew's earnest questions brought out nuggets of wisdom from Carla. But for Marie, every response felt like a taunting reminder of her own hesitations. As the meeting wrapped, Carla's genuine gratitude resonated through the room. "Thank you both for showing up. It makes a difference when people care." For a brief moment, the warmth of her words enveloped them. Yet Marie felt a stark contrast. She couldn't help but wonder, did she make a genuine impact? Or was she merely a shadow, trailing Andrew's light? On their way out, Andrew was buoyant, sharing ideas and potential solutions, but Marie found herself grappling with resentment. A voice inside nagged at her. Why did it feel as if her contributions were unworthy? The nagging feeling was unsettling, a confrontation with her own self-doubt and the perceived weight of her presence. Marie, what did you think? Andrew's enthusiasm broke through her thoughts, and her heart raced. Honestly, I thought it was enlightening, but I still feel like I have so much to grasp, she confessed. As she said it, her voice wavered, revealing insecurity she had long tried to stifle. Andrew took a step closer. We're both on this journey, Marie. Your perspective matters. Don't minimize it just because you feel uncertain. His assurance resonated, yet as they parted ways, her thoughts spiraled. Vulnerability had been the intended theme, yet facing it alone ignited a harsh self-assessment. The next step lay not only in the narratives they would delve into but within her. How could she channel these experiences into something meaningful, both for herself and the people they sought to connect with? Marie lay awake that night, her mind swirling. The desire to forge connections and confront her vulnerabilities battled against enduring insecurities. As morning light cascaded into her room, the realization struck her. The vulnerability in authentic connection was what made it valuable. But was she prepared to expose those hidden layers, to risk being seen, judged, or misunderstood? As she reached for her journal to jot down her reflections, a new question lingered in the air. Was the true story yet to be written in her own life? And with that, she couldn't shake off the feeling that a profound revelation awaited her. The very next conversation might just challenge everything she believed about herself. The following day, a cool breeze swept through the streets as Marie stepped out, a tight grip on her journal and a sense of purpose building within her. Today was different. The previous day's uncertainties had morphed into an insatiable curiosity about her own potential. As she made her way to meet Andrew for their next engagement, the question hung in her mind. Could she truly let go of her inhibitions and step into her own narrative? They met at a small café, the scent of roasted beans and pastries in the air. It felt inviting yet intimidating. Marie allowed herself to breathe in the atmosphere as she watched people animatedly chatting and forming connections, something she desperately wanted to cultivate for herself. Andrew, ever the extrovert, wasted no time in encouraging her with a smile. Let us tackle today head-on. The plan was to meet with a local artist known for his community murals, a figure who expressed the stories of struggles and triumphs through his vibrant work. It was a chance for her to connect not only with the artistic process but also with a deeper sense of expression. Perhaps in that space, she could find her voice. As they arrived at the studio, the sight was awe-inspiring. Paintings danced on canvas, colors clashed and harmonized at the same time, conveying emotions that were almost palpable. It was there that Marie felt a pull, a magnetic force urging her to engage, yet she hesitated. What if her perspective didn't measure up? What if her attempts to dissect the art were foolish? With a steadying breath, Andrew approached the artist and introduced her. This is Marie. She is really passionate about understanding stories through your art. His endorsement sent a pang of warmth through her, but instead of feeling buoyed, a new weight settled over her. The artist's gaze turned towards her, an imperceptible challenge lurking within it. What do you see? He asked, his voice smooth yet direct. The question caught Marie off guard. It was simple, yet it hurled her into a space of deep introspection. She struggled to respond, feeling the familiar swell of insecurity. It stung more than ever as she grappled with the notion of exposing herself in a way she hadn't quite prepared for. As she began, her heart racing, Andrew's supportive presence lingered nearby, a conduit for her courage. Yet the chaos in her mind drowned out the sound of her racing thoughts. Then an unexpected surge of clarity arose. I see the resilience in the colors, the way they fight against each other yet blend in harmony, she managed to say, hoping it conveyed her understanding. The artist nodded, a hint of respect flickering in his expression. Exactly. That tension is where the story lies. Art isn't just creation. It's a dialogue. This notion struck a chord deep within her. It resonated with her journey thus far. Marie felt herself take a small step forward. "I've struggled to find my own dialogue," she confessed, an unexpected vulnerability breaking the surface. "I often feel overshadowed by others' voices, like a shadow instead of an active participant." Andrew's attentive gaze anchored her. There was a shift as the artist processed her words. "Sometimes the most profound narratives are the quiet ones waiting to be revealed. You don't have to be loud to be impactful." This struck a vital nerve, and Marie could feel the foundation of her self-doubt begin to tremble. What if she had misjudged her own value? Could her silence speak just as loudly? The walls of her insecurities began to loosen their grip. The ensuing conversation flowed like paint on a canvas, with Andrew facilitating as Marie started to articulate her thoughts more freely. Each insight exchanged was like a brushstroke shaping a new pattern. She saw the path of her own potential clearer than ever as they left the studio. A spark ignited inside her. This experience was no longer just about Andrew's journey. She was on a trajectory of her own exploration. She clutched her journal tightly, knowing something had shifted irrevocably. Yet the flickering shadows of doubt still lingered. Was she truly willing to delve deeper, to confront the fears that made her shrink back in the first place? The stakes felt higher now, and Marie realized the layers of her personal narrative were just beginning to unveil themselves. What awaited her next might either solidify this emerging self or challenge her once more. Would she dare to embrace those hidden layers, or would she retreat into the familiar shadows of self-doubt? The next opportunity beckoned. Fragile yet potent, a conversation that would inevitably test her resolve. Maria's thoughts churned as she left the studio. The artist's words echoed in her mind. Narratives could be quiet yet impactful. That concept had sent a small wave of hope crashing against the shores of her self-doubt. But now she faced the lingering uncertainty of what this newfound awareness meant for her life. Was she ready to embrace this journey, or would she retreat back to the safety of obscurity? In the days that followed, Marie dove deeper into her reflections. Each evening, she poured her thoughts onto the pages of her journal, allowing her internal dialogue to unfold. The act of writing felt both liberating and terrifying. It was a risk, laying bare her innermost feelings for the ink to absorb. What if her thoughts were meaningless? What if her voice was just another echo in a room full of more dominant sounds? But with each entry, she sensed a shift. Gradually, she began to discover insights about herself formerly buried. They now yearned for acknowledgement. One entry detailed her childhood love for poetry, an interest she had abandoned beneath layers of practicality and adult responsibilities. Another described her fascination with storytelling, a skill that had once flowed effortlessly from her fingers, now stifled by fear. As she grappled with these revelations, Marie felt a fire igniting within her. She decided to take action. She rummaged through old boxes in her attic and uncovered remnants of her past. Notebooks filled with poems, short stories, and sketches. Each piece resonated with her, a reminder of the creativity that once thrived within her. For the first time in years, she felt the stirrings of passion bubbling back to life. Motivated by this rekindled spirit, she reached out to Andrew, eager to share her excitement and newfound path. "Can we explore this together?" she urged, her heart pounding in anticipation of his reply. She was no longer content with being an observer. It was time to step off the sidelines. Andrew's enthusiastic response encouraged her further. They decided to organize a small gathering at his place, inviting fellow creatives from their network. She envisioned an evening where storytellers, artists, and dreamers could share their journeys, a space to nurture voices not often heard. Would it be a chance for her to finally connect her story with other narratives? As the day of the gathering approached, anticipation mingled with anxiety. Marie painted her walls with optimism, while doubt painted thin smudges at the edges of her thoughts. Would her spoken words hold weight in the company of established artists? Would she falter under the pressure of exposure? Yet, with her journal in hand, she felt an undeniable urge to share her journey. Her story deserved a place among them. The evening arrived, and as guests filtered in, she felt her heart quicken. Each smile exchanged and conversation ignited a feeling of kinship, invigorating her spirit. When it came time for her to speak, a wave of apprehension washed over her. Standing among lingering voices, she questioned whether her insights were worthy of their attention. But deep down, Marie knew she had to offer her perspective. She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and began to weave her narrative. The words flowed, threading through her fears and doubts, painting the complexity of her journey towards self-discovery. To her surprise, the room began to resonate with nods and murmurs of connection. She spoke not only of her struggles but also of the triumphs that had lain dormant. With each shared story, the lines of her identity sharpened, clarity intertwining with resilience. As the night drew to a close, Andrew approached her with a look of pride. "You really connected with everyone tonight. I think you've unlocked something special." "Maybe I'm just starting to find my voice," she replied, heart still racing. But lurking in the shadows was a nagging thought. As much as she had grown, the journey ahead was still laden with uncertainties. The echoes of tonight's conversations reminded her that every voice had a story worth telling. Yet, the question remained, was she prepared for what lay beyond this small community? What would happen when she was challenged by forces outside her comfort zone? As she packed her belongings, memories of doubt began to swirl again, grappling with her resolve. She realized the next challenge loomed closer. Would she finally confront her fears, or take a safer route back to complacency? The answer awaited her, shrouded in mystery, as she prepared to step deeper into her evolving narrative. Marie stood at the threshold of her home, the soft light of dawn streaming in through the window, a radiant foil to the shadows of doubt that had lingered far too long. The past weeks had whisked her through endless moments of self-discovery, revealing layers she thought had long been buried beneath everyday struggles. Each conversation, each confrontation with the truths of her life, armed her with newfound insights and undeniable strength. The gathering she had hosted with Andrew had sparked an internal revolution. She had shifted from being a passive participant in her own life to an active architect of her narrative. As she glanced around her living room, now brimming with scattered pages of her thoughts, she recognized the sharp lines that had begun to form in her identity. What began as a cocoon of fear had transformed into a vibrant tapestry of empowerment. Marie felt a thrill. She had turned discomfort into dialogue, vulnerability into conviction. Her partnership with Andrew had evolved dramatically. Once just an unpredictable force in her world, he now stood beside her as a collaborator, not a savior. Together, they had engaged with community members, listened to their narratives, and explored the transformative power of storytelling. Their quest to understand each other's worlds had not only deepened their bond but had begun reinvigorating the town, bridging gaps that seemed insurmountable mere months ago. Marie allowed herself to bask in the satisfaction of tangible progress. The local business owners who had initially bristled at Andrew's presence were now open dialogues, discovering that a willingness to listen can soften even the deepest wounds. It was through these interactions that Marie recognized her own role not merely as a voice for others, but as an integral part of the fabric binding their stories together. As she poured herself a steaming cup of coffee, Marie reflected on her aspirations. No longer did she navigate life shrouded by insecurity. Rather, she envisioned her future blooming with purpose. She started penning her own collection of experiences, interweaving them with stories from those she had met on this journey, capturing the raw essence of their struggles and triumphs. The project, which she named Voices of Resilience, was about to become a reality, an anthology bound in strength and authenticity. Her desire to share these narratives with a broader audience propelled her to research publishers and platforms, each step affirming her belief that she could contribute meaningfully beyond her immediate world. This ignited a surge of joy within her. Each paragraph she composed deepened her commitment to not only advocate for herself but for the countless voices that remained unheard. Her confidence solidified. At last, she recognized that her struggles had equipped her with the insight necessary to craft this narrative. Marie was ready to step into her future with confidence. Meanwhile, Andrew's evolution hadn't gone unnoticed. His investment in the community transcended mere gestures. He committed resources to aid struggling local businesses, demonstrating not just promise but action coupled with genuine respect. The bonds he'd formed were based on understanding rather than obligation. Their collaborative efforts had shifted the communal dynamic, and together they proved that change could stem from authentic connection rather than transactional interactions. The moment for change arrived as Maria's anthology, along with Andrew's community initiatives, became a unifying force, bridging the gap between past missteps and future growth. As she stood in front of her café again, this time as a co-sponsor of a community event featuring the launch of her book, she felt a suffusion of pride wash over her. It was a celebration not just of her own journey, but of shared resilience. A sense of closure blanketed her as she addressed the crowd, the warmth of their faces igniting her spirit. Today marks the beginning of a renewed commitment to our stories and the strength they hold. We all have a tale waiting to be told. The applause resonated in her heart, permeating deep into her newfound identity. Behind her, Andrew beamed with pride, reflecting the deep connection they had forged through their collaboration. This journey had transformed them both, and as they engaged with the community together, recognition of their changed selves pulsed through the air, a shared commitment to listen and learn. Marie took a deep, fulfilling breath, cocooned in the tangible results of her growth. She had conquered her fears and rebuilt her self-esteem. Though the path ahead remained full of challenges, she emerged stronger, fully equipped with the belief that her voice mattered, one that would continue to resonate as she and Andrew worked together for a brighter future. This was their collective achievement, a product of individual transformation that held promise for tomorrow. And as Marie looked toward the unfolding horizon, she knew full well that this was only the beginning. Now, if you found this story of growth and redemption compelling, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that dive deep into personal triumphs. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps us reach more hearts. Comment your reactions and theories about how Maria's journey resonates with you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Your support is crucial. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand its importance.